Hi, Agata.
Let's discuss about the supplier evaluation and monitoring. This is really important, crucial in ITF. We also shall have a documented process for supplier monitoring. So I'm really curious how in charge cause you are doing it when you are in the organization, which is not actually mandatory from external motivation needs to use those requirements. I'm giving you the voice.
Yes, so firstly, I like to use a phrase. Not sure where it was coined from or who said it, but it's a really good phrase that I heard once while I was working in another much larger OEM, the high volume manufacturing. And it was once said to me that to measure is to know. If you don't measure something, you don't know what the situation is, and you don't know how to improve or how bad something may be. So I charge cars based on the initial assessment and RFQ and so on. We look at their newness of product, newness of company and technology. So are we asking them or potentially asking them to do something that they have no skill or experience in doing? So the supply development side would be much higher and the risk is higher. The risk of failure of project could be higher. So that's one element of the monitoring that we do initially. Depending on the supplier self-assessment that we send to the suppliers, and they will answer that as honestly and as best they can based on their interpretation, but we will guide them along the way. We do have some guiding or scoring criterion and a ranking system essentially, or a risk matrix. From there, we will conduct a pre-nominating site visit. So supplier quality assurance or the SQD or supplier quality engineering team, it's one function within charge. We will go to the supplier and then we will look at their results and confirm, do their results match what our audit would be like, and whether we need to upgrade some of that scoring or downgrade, and we will have a weighting factor as we go. So that's how we do that. In terms of supplier, once they're nominated, we will monitor them or check them on right first time, consistency, cost of poor quality. Do they monitor internally? What are their internal metrics and KPIs? How do they monitor their own internal processes and their sub supplies? Something that we will check on site. So it's a combination of site visit, current manufacturing with other products that they currently produce for other customers. We might view that. We'll look at delivery, so the number of missed deliveries, late shipments, incorrect information on the delivery note or Gallia label or ODET label. In terms of the documentation, that these are all the things that we set up with the supplier and set the expectation to them. If they are to be nominated with charge, we will then set these requirements. Furthermore, as a business, obviously we have to be lean and we also have to have profit margins. And within those margins, we're looking at the cost of manufacturing for their processes, the bill of material targets that we have internally, as well as the supplier's own targets to be have a good profitability. It needs to be mutually beneficial. We look at the tooling costs. So if we're looking to give a supplier the responsibility of making the tools and to go to third-party providers or their own tool makers, how much does the tooling cost for them to make versus what we might work with in terms of RFQ. So we would, if the tooling cost is too high, we would then do a minimum quote of 3 tool makers to see, can we be as competitive as them, and reasonable based on the tool quality. After that, we'll look at design changes. We'll monitor them on the efficiency of a design change, implementation, how long it will take to do the job. Usually, suppliers might say it's 12 to 16-week lead time to get a tool introduced, modified, and changes are put in there. But some minor changes might not require that level of timing. We also look at process changes, the efficiency of them. Usually it's a 90-day window, which is fairly standard within OEMs. A supplier, once they've notified and it's been approved by charge or by an OEM, they have 90 days to put the change into effect, minimum, before they introduce it. Sometimes there's emergency situations. The French will say force de majeure or act of God. In some cases, we need to monitor that and try and look at the efficiency and lessons learned when that happens. But it's fairly rare in my experience. And like I said, overall, we look at cost down opportunities from a purchasing and finance perspective. How can we have a better quality product but at a lower cost? So that's the main things we monitor with suppliers.
Okay, so in terms also from the IETF perspective, we definitely need to assure that we have the supplier management in the scope of our quality management system. This also indicated that we need to present all the also outsourcing in our quality manual. This is so basic, yes. Also, let's not forget that in IETF we have the need for documented process, yes, for supplier monitoring. And we have also a great indication of the KPIs. You did not mention the KPIs itself. However, you said that you have a system set up, yes, for monitoring this. And actually, you said also that a lot of things are really similar, yes, because what definitely the delivery performance of our supplier is important, yes, and the quality performance the same. So these are two basic issues which we may have also here in ITF. um, we did not say about premium freights. You did not mention this. ITF once was requiring to also track this as an indicator. However, sanction interpretation took it out. So that's why we don't have to monitor this. However, this can show us the efficiency at our supplier. Yes. Uh, you are an OEM right now, so you probably do not need to track with your supplier the disruptions at your customer. However, probably you are sharing this information with your suppliers. Yes, because this.
Yeah, I would say from an OEM perspective, I think that sanctioned interpretation should go back in because obviously we've had COVID, the pandemic, major issues in terms of supply chain disruption for raw materials, semiconductors. We all know this within the industry. We've lived it for the last 3 years and so on. Um, I think it's a really important metric because in those situations, it becomes the norm to air freight things, and it shouldn't be the norm. That we should be using sea freight where possible, or the most efficient energy saving as well as a CO2 emission process. We obviously want a green world. We want charge cars as electrified vehicles. So our main thing is the ESG charter. We're looking at sustainability, governance, as well as the electrification of vehicles. So the emission side of it. For us, we want to try and use shipping methods which are also green and efficient. In some cases, we will need to use air freight because of emergencies and development, but obviously we try to reduce that as much as possible. One from a sustainability perspective, and the other one is from cost. I think that OEMs in general will always use an element of air freight because it's a means of travel. Air freight cargo is fairly common, especially in tooling development when you have tight deadlines. You need to get something to market very quickly, especially development windows can be 2 years. In my experience, in higher volume OEMs, the Nissans of the world, um, and so on. And likewise, they want to try and get the product to market very quickly. Whereas Charge, we've developed over a number of years. We're trying to get the car to be the right level, right quality, customer satisfaction, and so on, and perceived quality. So our development cycle can be a bit longer. So we might not need to use air freight as much, but certainly we've had to use that in some situations just to get tooling from far locations. Tool makers tend to be in anywhere from China, Far East, Portugal, places like that. So it depends on how far away you are, your manufacturing facilities or your suppliers, versus where the tool makers are as well.
Okay, great. At the end, I just wanted to mention also that IATF is saying that, of course, in terms of the control which we have to have at our supplier, we may decrease or increase the level of this control. Yes, probably this will be based on the history of the corporation. Yes, and the, and the results obtained in the corporation with the supplier. Okay, Christopher, thank you very much for this episode, and let's meet in another one. I would like to talk with you about quality assurance on daily basis with the suppliers. So, hear you in 1 week.